You are live.
I have no idea what they're talking about. I'll have to stop.
What?
Who's that woman?
The jail's asking for chairs too. Honest to God, they are.
Okay, we're going to call this tourism meeting to order. First item of business, approve the minutes of the August 24th meeting. Somebody want to make a motion?
Make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Wild, second. Supervisor Hogan, any discussions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. First resolution request. The resolution requests amend resolution 139 of 2021 to increase the amount of service provider agreement for the Adirondack Regional Tourism Council Incorporated to $30,000 for regional marketing services to reflect the New York State Department of Economic Development matching grant funds. Somebody want to make this a motion?
Mike Wild, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hogan. Any discussions on this? Joanne, you want to elaborate a little bit? It's just accepting grant.
Yeah, we had a resolution, an agreement in effect earlier this year, and I just need to change it because we have since then been approved for matching funds. We have not received them yet, but we've been approved.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolution request number 2, to amend resolution 287 of 2021 to remove criteria 4 through 7 as they no longer are applicable. That's all in your package. Are there any questions about this resolution? Somebody want to make a motion, bring it to the floor? Motion by Supervisor Merlino. Do we have a second?
I need a minute.
I'll second it to get it on the floor. Okay, discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can we have just a brief overview of what 4 through 7 were that were taken out?
Yeah, somebody will take
So
that.
on Schedule A in your agenda packet, there's the previous resolution, and then flip back to the next page, Schedule A, and there are 7 items. Items 4 through 7 have been carried over for many, many, many years, as reflected by the many resolutions noted in the resolution here. So number 4, the county will enter, so this is relative to special event funding. The county will enter into contracts with sponsors, who have 50% of funding available or committed before they come to Warren County. When we were revising all of our guidelines, that was not part of the revisions. So unless we want to go back and change the guidelines, that would not be applicable. Number 5, the flat rate of $350,000. We've exceeded that for many years. And in this current budget that I'll review with you, we have $600,000 allotted for special events. So a flat rate of $350,000 has been unrealistic for a number of years. Number 6, applications due on November 1 of each year. In the new revised application packet, we have 2 deadlines, one for peak events and one for off-peak events. So that's part of the new application document, but it's not November 1 of each year. So that's not applicable. Number 7, 100% of the funding will be decided at the December committee meeting. Again, that's not part of what we revised in the new application process.
So just really a cleanup of those things. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. Do we want to examine the language in number 2, that it's multi-day events only?
Any discussion on that?
It does say we would consider exceptions.
May I, Chairman Garrity?
Sure.
Could we put something in there that refers to the application packet and the scoring guidelines instead of that language?
That sounds logical.
Sure.
Because that's where we set forth, I'm sorry, may I?
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. That is where we set forth the priorities and who's going to, if they score high enough, then they can get a certain amount of funding.
Amanda, any,
We can, I mean, you can change your motion to amend it however you want. We just need to know what you want number 2 to say.
okay. So it's on the floor for discussion. Does somebody want to make an amendment to number 2 or whatever you want to amend?
Yeah, I'll say the contract, or sorry, as a general rule, the county will follow the scoring guidelines and criteria that were passed in whatever that resolution was earlier this summer.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Joanne?
I think that it does, but I don't think that's related to number 2. I think that would be a number 4, kind of a catch-all criteria.
So who made the motion?
Mr.
A motion to amend what's on the floor. Yes, thank you. Kevin.
Early, the motion and you
Excuse-
seconded it. So-
Supervisor Marlene, are you willing to amend your motion?
Yes, sir. You need it?
And I'll amend mine. Administrator Moore?
Thank you. Yeah, just for information, I pulled up the special event funding resolution where we approve all the occupancy tax awards. That was recent, just revised on Friday to add the Special Olympics in there. Resolution 391. And I don't, just a quick scan of this, I don't see any events on here that are single day events. So it looks like, this is what we're doing for the most part anyway, is that we do fund multi-day events and that we allow ourselves an exception, the ability to make exceptions.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Hogan?
Is there some way to adjust the language so that the expectation is not that somebody with a single day event would look at this and say, well, I'm not going to go to the county, I'm automatically going to go to the town?
We could change the word shall only to typically, the county typically contracts.
Better.
I'm all right with that. Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend the resolution. Any further discussion? And you captured all the language. Go ahead.
So we're just changing number 2 to say as a general rule, the county typically contracts for participation in multi-day. We're doing that, or we're taking as a general rule, the county will follow what's set forth.
It's whatever the will of the committee is.
Which do you want to go?
What does? you want?
I thought that Ryan Moore and Amanda's suggestion about for number 2, the county typically only contracts is good for number 2. And that we would put a new number 4 in about the scoring criteria from.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, Mike Treasurer Swan, give his report. We don't do the budget.
Good morning, everybody. The comparison between the 2021 collections and the 2020 collections is we're up about 90%, which really doesn't mean much because 2020 wasn't a very good year. The critical one is the comparison between this year and 2019 at the same time. And we're up 14.6% on collections from 2019 in middle of September, which is a strong increase. Now, one thing I do want to state on this is when we're comparing to 2019 figures, Americaid had already taken place by September in 19. Americaid is going on right now. So Americaid collections are not in what we've collected for 2021 at this point. So I think I think we're doing really well, all right, based on that, because from what I've seen so far, I think Americaid is going to be a typical Americaid from what I'm hearing from the motel and hotel owners. And the other thing that I want to just quickly bring up is that last Friday, the board approved the contract with Granicus for us to start doing our scrub for short-term rentals. I estimate that that's going to add about 1,000 registrants to our pile of people by spring. So we're going to be seeing quite a bit there. And the other thing is I just want to do a shout out to Bolton and I want to thank them. They just did their permitting process, and they have included in that they will not issue a permit unless unless a certificate of registration can be produced from the county. So basically, they're saying, if you aren't collecting occupancy tax and registered with the county, you're not going to be permitted to run a short-term rental in Bolton. So I just want to say thank you to them for that.
That's good.
Questions?
Anybody?
How are the signups going?
Pardon me?
How are the signups for the short term? And
We're very busy. Yeah, I have 1.5 staff persons working on this, and we're getting probably 15 to 20 a week.
Any other questions for Treasurer Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you. How many are we currently collecting on?
The last time I looked, it was north of 450.
That's good.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Treasurer Swan? Great, thank you, Michael.
Thank
The
you.
numbers are encouraging. So, okay, we're going to skip the budget review right now, and then we'll go down to Lake George Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau. Gina's not here. Is she going to be on?
I don't see it here.
I don't see Gina. Okay, Jeff Mead is in the building. So Jeff, you're up.
Good afternoon.
Thank
I'm going to talk about the arena budget first, and then we'll get into the Thunder budget, and then kind of what's been going on at the arena, and then what's going on this winter and early next year. So good to see y'all. The arena budget, you kind of have a snapshot here as to what we work off of all year long. It starts I have a finance committee. I put a budget together. We kind of bat it back and forth for a while. I get my staff involved, and eventually we come to a conclusion as to what the budget should look like for the year. So just some highlights on the budget this year. After being gone for a full year with no events, we expect about 95 events to happen inside the arena this year. That includes, that's ticketed events for the most part. We don't include, we rent over $100,000 a year in ice to kids and to adults. So the building will be busy, 7 days a week this year, as it historically has been in the last 6 years. So a lot of these numbers are netted out, but we expect a pretty good year. Quite honestly, I was a little bit conservative this year, just not knowing what the landscape would be. And we're talking, concerts and with those events come back to us. We're cautiously optimistic that we'll get some concerts. We've got some discussions going with promoters, probably not until Q1 or Q2 of 2022 to be upfront with y'all. So the events like the rodeo, they're back. Next week we have a private event, which is a 10-day event. I can't give you the name of the event, but I'm sure you could guess. Which is a really good event for the building. New York State girls volleyball is back this year again. The basketballs will be back this year, Section 2 basketball. The boys state finals, which have been gone for 5 years now. We started a 3-year run, which is historically, it's a really good event for the arena and certainly our community. We're close to locking down a couple of circuses. We just signed an agreement the other day for a big event on January 8th. It's the moment I'm allowed to talk about it, I will. It's not a budgeted event, so that will help our bottom line as well. Typically, by now we kind of have a pretty good, we kind of know what's going to happen inside the arena for the next, 7-8 months. A little bit slower this year. I think that's certainly due to the COVID pandemic, which we're hoping to get through. So, but I think it's a pretty good event. Obviously, it includes all the funding that we do get from Warren County. So we expect to make about $118,000 this year. That, as I said, that includes the OCC tax money that we do get from the county. So that's kind of the arena budget. Happy to answer any questions if you have any before I turn it over to the Thunder budget.
Jeff, are we pretty sure we'll still be able to do these, or are these just projections, or are you?
This is a budget based upon 100% capacity.
Okay.
If that changes, then I've got some work to do quickly. But we're hopeful. As of today, we're still allowed to have up to 5,000 fans inside the building. Again, if that changes, it's a whole different discussion and a different budget.
Thank you.
So,
Any other questions? Anybody? All right, go ahead.
And again, the hockey budget is projected at 100% capacity. Hockey starts next month, so we kind of have a pretty good idea as to where we're going to be at in terms of revenue numbers. As I've told the board and the staff, our group number, which is about close to $200,000 in group revenue, a little bit worried about that still. But we're starting to see some groups starting to sign up. Typically, we're a little bit slower in our group business first half of the year than second, regardless. So if we get to where we're at group wise, I think we'll be in good shape. Our total ticket revenue, we budgeted about $1.3 million. And we're on a really good pace for that right now. We're well ahead of where we were the last time we played in 2019, 2020. So it's very encouraging. I've said it a few times, we're ahead of where we were the last time we played, and the ECHL as a whole is about 9% behind. So it's good for us, and hopefully the rest of the teams can kind of catch up to where they need to be. Total other revenue, most of that number, as I mentioned, does include some groups and corporate support, food and beverage, and our retail store. So again, we're trending in a really good direction to make sure we hit that number. So we try to do about $2.4 million in revenue. And obviously, if you can scroll down and see our expenses, about $2.061 million. So again, we project to make about $100,000 in the hockey team. In the last few years, we've done better financially every year. Year one, well, if you recall, the year before we took over the team, Calgary, they lost $1 million operating the team. Year one, we broke even, and we've done a little bit better financially each year. So we think this is a solid number, and the closer we get to October, the more encouraging it is. So, there's still some things we got to sort out with the ECHL on testing players, et cetera, which could add to our expenses, but we don't think it'll be too prohibitive. So we're pretty encouraged about the Thunder budget as well. So how we market the team, and we've kind of focused on 10 games a year. Obviously, we play 36, but our focus is to sell out 10 games. I think it's a pretty good strategy, and it's worked well for us. Quite honestly, we just don't have enough money to market every game. And the weeknight games, we know if we get put money behind them, it's probably not going to move the needle. We're probably not going to sell more tickets because we put $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 behind a Wednesday game. So we focus on our big games, the opening nights, the New Year's Eve, the Thanksgiving holidays, our law enforcement night, our military appreciation night, our Stick It to Cancer weekend. So that's how we spend our advertising dollars. And we spend a lot of our money on digital advertising now. It works. It's cost effective. We spend a lot of money on Facebook, Instagram, just to directly target our customers. So, and most of our marketing is geared towards selling tickets. We don't spend a lot of money on brand awareness. Again, that's budget related, but our focus is on selling tickets and getting people inside the arena, give them a good experience, and we think they'll come back. So, and again, we spend our money on the casual fan. So the hardcore hockey fan, if we didn't have that $1 million video board, they would still come because they really care about what happens on the ice. We figure about 1/3 of our fans are hockey fans and 2/3 are casual fans. So we spend our money to try to get the casual fan to come to come one game, then hopefully, they enjoy it. They want to come back 4 or 5 times a year, and, to grow. That's how we try to grow a business with our advertising. We do have partners that we're able to trade with. We trade with our local radio station. We have some trade with the local Post Star. So we do get some more dollars out of there where it's not cash. And obviously we trade for advertising inside the building. So that's kind of been our focus the last 4 years. We think it works pretty well, and it keeps us within the budget that we have. So again, happy to answer any questions on the Thunder or how we market our team or the arena.
Okay. Do we have any questions of anybody? How many more years do you have of the naming rights to the arena, Jeff?
When Gallagher bought Cool, they extended it 1 year, so the end of 2024 is the end of the agreement. So, yep. And just part of the deal, Gallagher does have the right to change the name of the building if they wish. So,
any other questions for Jeff? None? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
thank y'all.
I appreciate it. Okay, do I see anybody from the CVB? No?
We did let her know the time had changed.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll go to special event funding, Festival of the Lights. Somebody want to explain that?
So I'll just give you a little bit of an intro. In your agenda packet, Kristen did review. Letizia is here to answer questions and maybe give a little background info on this because it has changed from last year. Festival of Lights in Lake George. So in your agenda packet is the summary that Kristen provided after she looked through many, many, many pages of the new application. Right? Thank you. Then I sent separately to the committee Letitia's full application and the scoring sheet. So hopefully the committee has taken some time to look through the summary, the application, and the score sheet to make a decision on Letitia's request. So she's here if you want to come to the podium, if any of the committee members have
Sure.
questions. So last year she was in Festival Commons. She's not able to be in Festival Commons this year, so she's changed up her format considerably.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. Many of you may be familiar with the event that happened last year during the pandemic in Festival Commons. I'm happy to say we were pleasantly displaced by the incoming Ice Castles event, which is extremely beneficial for our area. In knowing about that event and also working to establish, I think, everyone's community goal of a 365 initiative for events throughout our area, I have modified the Festival of Lights to include the entire village of Lake George. So it is not just a one location type of event. You will find that it will include local businesses and storefronts, as well as partners coming in to set up beautiful light displays throughout the entire village for folks to enjoy every day throughout the entire month of December. In addition to those experiences, there's a very strong campaign to drive families to our region to also enjoy not only the free light displays that will be up, but some really key events that will take place at local venues, including the Holiday Inn, the Marriott, and the Fort William Henry. Some of the events that are outlined in your packet are family-friendly musical performances by some popular characters. We'll call them the Frozen Sisters because we have to be careful about copyright. There's, interactive dinner theater for families. There is a holiday artisan marketplace taking place at the Fort William Henry, as well as a comedy show. So in working with these three very prominent hotels in our area, as well as others to reflect light displays on their properties, the goal is to encourage families to come to our area and stay overnight and spend time and money here and, really use their dollar wisely in local storefronts and support local businesses in some of our slower time of year.
Any questions? Anybody? Chairwoman Seaver.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say this is a very different process than last year, and I applaud you for not giving up, coming back, looking at this a little differently, and inspiring us to do better. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you've contributed. I look forward to your event.
Thank you so much.
Are you working with Christian and the Winterfest group? Because they do want to begin Winterfest in December. So how does that fit in? And I think we'll hear from Winterfest next month, but they weren't ready with their application. So how do you work with them on whatever they have planned?
Yes, so Christian and I have had, Mr. Director and I rather have had several discussions already about how we can really follow this rising tides mentality of working together and collaboratively. I think most effectively that's done throughout our marketing. And we, really plan to include that as well throughout the Ice Castles marketing campaign. I've spoken with their team briefly, and, the goal is really to show that these events piggyback off of one another while still sort of happening simultaneously, but offering different experiences for different target audiences, whereas you may find Winterfest does have wonderful family activities, but also activities for couples. And just, I think they all benefit one another, and in a strong marketing campaign where we share each other's endeavors rather than try to compete with one another's endeavors, based on the conversations that I've had, it seems like that is our goal, to all work collectively to make sure that these events really do enforce one another.
So somebody refresh Supervisor Hogan, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is a great event. It looks like a lot of fun. I'm particularly excited about it because it dovetails very nicely with the Lights On Festival in Johnsburg. And I look forward to how we're going to co-market those.
Absolutely.
But I also encourage you to look outside of the village and try to expand this over the years into all the communities in Warren County, because I can't think of anything more pleasant than taking a drive on a long winter's night and looking at the lights everywhere. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Well.
thank you. I noticed on your application, it's a for-profit event.
Correct.
That is. So I'm just curious about your revenue stream. If you're going to be just putting it along the village of Lake George and
So previously in our location in Festival Commons, there was a ticket price to attend. That is going to be removed to encourage families to just come through the village and walk and really participate in what's open in terms of, storefronts and restaurants. However, myself, I have I have reserved any type of direct pay that I would normally receive because I am an event planner as my occupation. So rather, the events that are taking place at the Holiday Inn, the Holiday Marketplace, Artisan Marketplace rather, and the comedy show are the streams of revenue that will then offset my time and amount of, collaboration, or rather coordination that will make this event happen, and not even putting into it all of the organization of the light displays and facilitating the displays to come in where storefronts may not be year round or local, so that we do not have huge gaps in sort of the displays. It's very fluid and enjoyable from start to finish.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead. Claudia.
I see in the packet that we have her occupancy tax request summary. Is there a full application as well? Okay, I don't see that yet. Okay, thanks.
The full application we don't want that to be posted publicly with the agenda. So I sent to the tourism committee the full application and the score sheet so that you could all read it ahead of time. And then when you walk in the door today, you've got the score sheet and you have some ideas. In that same email, I did send the two vendor responses for that RFP presentation next week. So reminder to go back and take a look at that for next week's meeting.
Thanks, Joanne. I see your email now. Thank you.
Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. Along with Chairwoman Seaver, I want to thank you. You put a lot of outside thinking and communication. I just wanted to bring up there is a notice and intent to fill a vacant position within tourism for the communications assistant. If it's something you might be interested in, because it seems like you've done a lot throughout the whole thing, and I agree with Supervisor Hogan. It's expanding it out. This you really have a lot of energy and enthusiasm in doing this and being displaced, and it didn't, in my mind, didn't take you long to re-coordinate thing, and that is impressive. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I kind of gather from the committee that they haven't had time to do the scoring on this event. Is there a chance that we could do this and have it ready for when we have our next meeting next week? Is that a fair statement?
We have another committee meeting next week.
To review the RFPs.
We have to do the RFPs on
Missed that one. Thanks.
yeah. Would that be better? Or are you prepared to make a award today? Anyone? Supervisor Hogan.
It appears from the treasurer's report that we have the money, so I'm willing to make a motion to make this award today.
The full amount?
Yes.
Do we have the money?
I am pulling it up right now. I agree, 34,134.
Yeah. So we have $34,134 left in the.
Winterfest will be on the next agenda though.
We have another event coming in, so.
Would that be an expense for this year or for next year?
Their plan is to begin in September, but do we pay it in January perhaps?
Then I'll amend my motion to be for 30,000.
Okay. Do we have a second on 30,000? You have completed the scoring sheets?
I did. I
Okay.
thought she came in pretty high.
Okay. Do we have a second? Anybody on the committee?
I will second. I have a question too.
All right, we have a second by Supervisor Bramer. Discussion.
Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. Joanne, did anybody, well, if Kevin allows that, did anyone in your office go through the scoring sheet to provide a school?
I did read it. Kristen reviewed it and provided the summary, but we did not want to share our score publicly. We wanted the committee to do that.
Chairwoman.
Thank you. I think it's great that Letizia is here today to answer any questions that anyone has. I appreciate, Joanne, you sending this out ahead of time. Again, I think looks like a complete application. My only question is, I know part of bringing these back through the committee, and perhaps this is a question more for Kristen, the checklist, there's an application checklist. Is this all? I don't see any, I guess I'm failing to see your summary, Kristen. A separate document than
It
the,
was the last 2 pages of the agenda packet.
oh, this summary you're referring to. So on here, does it, I think just in the future for us to know we have a complete application in front of us, that's helpful. I was just looking for that. Okay, I'll talk to you about it later. I'm good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the attention to the detail.
Okay.
It was a great application, by the way. It truly was a much easier experience this time having everything. If you're, for what it's worth, if you would like my 2 cents, it was actually very easy to navigate. It was excellent to know what was expected. The checklist was extremely helpful and it made things far more simple and straightforward. It was a much easier process this time around.
That's great. I'm sure Supervisor or Chairman Garrity is happy to hear that because that was one of his concerns in going out with this to not-for-profits and groups. So Chairman, thank you again for your support on that. That sounds like it worked.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So we have a motion by Supervisor Hogan. Does anybody second the motion to fund 30,000?
You do have a second.
We had a second by Supervisor Bramer. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in support of this event, but without having the opportunity to go through the whole application, $30,000 is not something I'm prepared to support today. And if we can wait for a month, and if it doesn't impact the start of this and the planning of this, then I'd prefer that we'd wait.
Can I say something?
Any committee discussion?
Oh, the presenter wants to speak.
Excuse me.
I apologize. Just in response to what was just shared, it very much does impact the progression of this event. Having already received, the application, having the process been later, I would have liked to have started, really rolling with this 3 months ago. So I have a very strong marketing plan that we are ready to move forward with. That is completely every element of it that is in the marketing plan that you've been presented with, details every dime that will be spent and where it will be spent in terms of, the targeting and where the reach is, that is extremely beneficial to pulling those families from 4 to 5 hours away rather than just relying on our locals to attend. And I am very apprehensive to let this wait any longer without being disrespectful, because we really need time to make sure these ad campaigns can be put in place effectively, they can be designed appropriately, and they can be modified, because thankfully with the analytics, we can look at how they're working one way, and if they're not working appropriately, we can make changes to them while there's still time to bring people here.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairman. Since I did score this, I took the time last night to go through and score it. I'll tell you that she scored an 85 by my guesstimate.
Okay.
And the strength of her application lay in her marketing plan. The fact that it is a shoulder season event, that spans many days and has the opportunity to bring people here, not just during weekends, but also weekdays, as I understand it, which is kind of a big deal for us. Heads in beds midweek would be awesome. And there was one other thing that I felt she was particularly strong on. Off-peak marketing event. Oh, that you gave a pretty clear picture of what you were spending the money on.
Okay.
So thank you.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion, let's vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Opposed?
carried. Okay, 30,000, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All set. All right. Let's backtrack up to Lake George Regional Convention Center. You ready, Dana, to give your presentation? Thank you. All right.
My apologies. I thought the meeting was at 1.
It's fine. We went up and down.
You're gonna offer it up.
You're fine.
Thanks, Tammy.
Okay.
It was listed at 1 at one time.
I just want to make sure that Tammy had the PowerPoint up.
There it is. Thank you.
Are we all set?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate your assistance on this. What you have before you is the Lake George Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau 2022 budget presentation. This is coming after us submitting our marketing plan along with the budget. And overall, our request for the budget for this year was $549,970. And the overall objectives of our plan was for lead generation, destination marketing to extend the Lake George area brand, and client networking. So moving right along to our line item expenses. Under trade show attendance would be $45,000 and $45,700. That would include, again, the lead generation, destination marketing, and client recognition. And what you have before you are the actual trade show attendance, the actual events. Connect Association, Specialty and Faith, NDC. Those are various markets within one brand of a company that offers these trade shows. We just recently attended Connect Association and Specialty. And between two of us, we had 91 appointments over a 2.5-day period at this year. It was the first face-to-face true event that we'd had on such a large scale, just 2.5 weeks ago. Connect Faith this year is coming up in October, and then Connect DC will be in December. Oftentimes these events, just so you understand, happen at this time of year when meeting and event planners are making their plans for the following years, subsequent years to come. Also I kind of had this divided up so that it was more associations in the one column, corporate events in another, and then sports on the third column. So following along, Northeast, actually New England Society of Association Executives and SA, the Empire State Association Executives. Those are all state association organizations. They're like the mothership of all the state associations, either within New England or in New York State. And then Religious Conference Managers Association, that is an organization, it is of faith-based organizations that, again, that's their mothership that they go to for education, networking, and to meet suppliers like us. Within the corporate world, Destinations East, Northeast Small Market Meetings, and lunch and events through Meeting Professionals International. Most of those, or all of those event planners are in the corporate space. So what we have seen this year, unfortunately already, we had several corporate events that were booked either late this summer or early this fall that have already pulled out, or they've postponed or canceled due to the COVID spikes. And we're seeing this as a national trend right now. So our strategy is that what we're seeing now in our leisure market, all that pent up demand will happen as they move forward in 2022 and 2023. We've also already done this year a joint sales mission with our state partners, meaning other destinations around the state. We just recently held a luncheon in Albany of state association planners, and we'll continue to do that in the future. Lastly, sports ETA and sports relationship conference. We had rollover events for this year based on monies and sponsorships that we had paid for in advance. That's rolled over to this year. Those two events for 2021 are coming up in the next 6 weeks, actually. And we're also proposing that for 2022. Organizational memberships. So we belong to quite a variety of organizations, again, ultimately for lead generation, to expand the awareness of our brand of the Lake George area and the meetings opportunities here, as well as client networking, and lastly, education. And there are a variety of organizations that we belong to so that then we can actually attend their events. One of the caveats of actually event attendance is to belong to those associations. So they include New England Association Executives, Empire State Executives, Religious Conference Managers, New York State Destination Marketing Organization. That is all of the 17 CVBs around the state that belong to an organization, and a big part of what we do is advocate for our tourism dollars and anything at the state level that affects tourism in that regard. And also for the businesses, advocating for the businesses within the hospitality industry. So like to get us through COVID, everything that Ryan Moore had passed to us as the county administrator that we focused on with our destination partners, we had also worked with NISHDA and New York State DMO Association to ensure that we could get open and safely and do everything that we could. We were really fortunate because you were so forthcoming with that information, and not every other destination had that like we did. Meeting Professionals International, that is an upstate chapter, and that is both buyers and suppliers, but in that corporate field of meeting and event planners. Destinations International is, again, one of the motherships of all of CVBs across the country and actually internationally. So of Convention and Visitors Bureau and destination marketing organizations. And then lastly, you'll see the last column is sports ETA they are rights holders and suppliers within the sporting industry. Forum for Executive Women is an Albany-based, it's really the capital region is really Columbia County up to Essex County of executives that have the power to make decisions to bring their corporate meetings here to our area, hence being involved in that. And NISHDA, the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association, again, lobbying more for, it started as the organization for restaurants and hotels, and now it's expanded its reach. And really COVID has allowed a lot of organizations to not only do that because there was such a demand for the advocacy at the state level. And then lastly, the Business Council of New York State. This is an organization, again, a business organization that covers all businesses. They meet annually at the Sagamore. They're actually in-house this week, and Governor Hochul will be there for a presentation on Friday morning. If anybody's interested in that, I can send you more information. Advertising and advertorial, I had that in parentheses because oftentimes we buy an ad with or some form of advertising where we extend the reach of it through an advertorial message where we're providing all that messaging and it's not just a blatant ad. Again, our goal is always destination awareness, frequency and reach, and a call to action, whether it's to click through to get a guide for our meetings guide, or to meetlakegeorge.com, which is becomes an extension of visitlakegeorge.com. And this would be in a variety of publications. Every ad that we've even placed this year has been in your monthly or quarterly packets. And again, extending the brand awareness of Lake George area. The association and specialty market. So within this is now we're going to drill down into where our advertising would be going for that dollar amount. So the Empire State Society of Association Executives, they have two major events throughout the year. One of them is Meetings Membership and Marketing Institute, and the other one is their annual conference and expo. So we sponsor, we advertise, we do everything that we can while we have that dedicated FaceTime, if you will, whether it's been virtual or live, with meeting and event planners specifically. Connect Faith, we were in their conference magazine, right? It just came out now in anticipation. That organization went to a quarterly publication. So in anticipation of the upcoming event where we will actually be there face-to-face with appointments one-on-one with faith-based event planners. USAE is in the association world, nationally, regionally, and statewide. And this publication is a weekly publication. This year we've done, through them, we did straight advertising, but we also did e-blast to utilize their database. And we utilized it in all of the New England, Northeast, and you might call some mid-Atlantic states, where we could actually pull out the states of people that would actually have meet a regional business that could come here. And then for RCMA, that is the Religious Conference Managers Association, and they do both a spring and a winter monthly publication. Well, they do a monthly year round, but spring and winter, our goal would be to capitalize on spring Easter events, you know, in that world of faith-based planners, and then winter holiday time, where they're already thinking within their congregations and in their faith-based organizations about, you know, what will they do with those groups in the future. Within the corporate market, we had kept our messaging very light, knowing that within the corporate market, we need their business because that's where, between association and the corporate market, where they can come here midweek. The corporate market does not necessarily come on the weekends because it's their families and that sort of thing. Differently than a faith-based or a sporting event. Those would be weekend events. So in the corporate market, we take care of where we're members first and foremost. So MPI would be more about their annual meeting. Again, that would be where you get to actually not only help to advertise, but also see people face to face and build on those relationships. Smart Meetings and Bright Media, that is a well-known national publication where we have done digital and print in the past. And we looked at spring and fall. Again, the spring, the June time, and then the fall time is when major meetings take place or people are looking at trends that are coming out. So those publications are very well read, as well as that's when they also have face-to-face meetings. So this year we were in, it was early in July because things were pushed at once. Spikes happened, the springtime got pushed to July, and we went to Boston and had 17 appointments over a full day in Boston, face-to-face with meeting and event planners. Successful Meetings is part of the North Star Group, and that's national and regional. And when I say it's regional of the national publication, it would be like if you were reading your own favorite magazine and there was an ad for something within our region. It may not be, that same ad may not be all across the country in their publication, but it would be regionally where we get to pick the states where that our ad is inserted. And so that would be spring and fall, digital and print. So digital is where we can actually get click-throughs, and we can actually see our impressions and actually understand that frequency and reach. Times Review, we have worked with them already this year, Metro New York and predominantly on the Long Island market, where we can't really afford to be directly in that New York City market because of the expense. You know, an ad in anything or any sort of reach within New York City is cost prohibitive. But on Long Island, where many people that work and own businesses within New York City actually live on Long Island, so we were trying to reach them in their homes, and it's really done very well. All of this year, what we tried to do within that market to reach that Metro New York market. The sports market. So while we have attended various things in the past, we drilled down to where we could reach the most people either that know us and have had business here and or really will have business for us, in terms of that their sporting events would actually have teams and or representation within the Northeast. Sports ETA, we are a member of that organization and have been a member for more than a decade, and have supported their symposium program, which is where we also have one-on-one appointments. And the Sports Relationship Conference Program, that is another event that's coming up this fall, but it also happens typically in the fall. And that is another opportunity where all rights holders, when you think of rights holders, think anything that's USA. So it could be USA Wrestling, USA Field Hockey, USA Fencing. All of those types of national governing bodies go to these two conferences to network, to have one-on-one appointments with suppliers, as we are known in the industry, and for educational offerings, and then their own networking among each other and what's happening within their respective sports. The wedding market. So we condensed everything this past year, basically how our marketing went for within the weddings. And we're not here to be wedding planners. I just want to throw that out there. We're here to create that awareness of Lake George as a destination wedding spot. Just like Newport, Rhode Island, or the Finger Lakes, or somewhere where people would say, that's where I want to have my wedding. So the marketing isn't necessarily local. It's local to the capital region because many people in Albany in that Albany capital region would want to have their wedding here. But our goal has been to make sure that we're marketing to people that are 3 to 5 hours away. And that have a relationship with Lake George. Either they've come to camp here every year, their family has come here, they have a second home here, they're familiar with the destination. And so all of that marketing would happen in that wedding engagement timeframe, which is from Thanksgiving through really Valentine's Day, but like 2 weeks after is when all of a sudden, if somebody gets engaged, they start searching for that information. And we really, this year, we in our thought estimation, we knocked it out of the park in terms of what we were able to gain. We learned a lot we put up a wall on the actual wedding digital guide so that now we could collect all of that information and then disseminate that to all destination partners so that then they could indeed market to the wedding, those interested in destination weddings here in Lake George. Marketing, it's $78,000 here. This is where really we focused a lot of our efforts on this entire, really dating back to 2020 and pre that, but we found that the paid e-blast of using other people's databases has helped to grow our reach. You know, it would be like, you know, Joanne's consumer, her consumer list of what she's sending to on a monthly basis is a tremendous list. People would want to buy that list or have an opportunity. And that's where our paid e-blasts come into play. So it would be like some of those advertising publications, we would buy an e-blast with the business review for the corporate market, or USAE for the association market, or SA for their association market. And so that sort of marketing activity is different than a paid ad in terms of how we define that. MailChimp e-news for monthly outreach. We had been using a free tool and we found that there was too much spam happening. So our messages were not getting through until we had an actual paid monthly for that. Google AdWords fall into this for search engine marketing and optimization, basically a pay-per-click. And that again, so if somebody is searching for weddings in Lake Placid, we might come up for there on that. You know, we would want people to look at us before they looked at Lake Placid, quite honestly. And collateral content, video asset production. And just so everybody understands here, we just launched our media hub, which for all destination partners, there's already a library of photography and video for the media to access, for our destination partners to access. And we're very excited about that because the rights are there where you can use photography and you have the rights to do it because it's either the photo credit is there or we have the rights and we can share that. And lastly, lead generation, we call it smile and dial. You know, there's nothing like, you know, you can go to a trade show every day, but if you don't do the follow-up, it's all in the follow-up. And that takes time and effort and quite honestly, money. Sponsorships and incentives. So basically right now, so we've had this Meet Smart and Save program. We're up to a third organization that's utilizing those dollars. We've been asked very much about trolley transportation, so we're adding that too, depending on, someone would need to have, at least 100 room nights for us to give them money for the trolley, because if they didn't have that, a certain level, kind of like how you scored, applications for today and for other days, there would need a certain threshold. There's certain bid fees, certain organizations where you would want to buy their business in some way, shape, or form to bring it here. And again, it would be, evaluated through our EI, our economic impact calculator, and the ROI on that would need to be at least 2 times the bid fee. We'd want to have a certain threshold of how we net money for the organization. Kind of going back to Kristen's whole circle of, it's an investment in that because it becomes an investment in back into our destination. Financial incentive program where all groups would be vetted, and that would be, again, based on the number of room nights, anywhere between $5,000 and $3,000. Again, it would have to, there's a certain level of room nights that would need to be hit and actualized. It's one thing for somebody to tell us that they're going to do 500 room nights. It's another for them to actually actualize it. So, and then specialty promotional items. So for instance, while we know that Special Olympics was here and we're very excited about that event, they had also asked us for sponsorship dollars, but it is all the same bag of money in terms of how we look at occupancy tax monies. And so we will purchase for them water bottles. With our Lake George area brand on that, versus an outright sponsorship. So, it just wouldn't be fair to me. In our estimation, there'd be a form of double dipping if there was another level of sponsorship on the table for that. Administrative expenses. We were asked recently during financial review of, what does that entail for office expenses? But there's rent, there's insurance, there's spectrum, there's office equipment access, there's building maintenance. HR expenses, payroll and employee records. It's all automated, all through GTM, local company, but yet it's all, everything can be spit out in a moment in terms of reporting. And then accounting expenses, we have QuickBooks accounting, payables activities, contractor and voucher reporting each month. Mileage. Now this has been a light year, of course, because nobody's done a lot of face-to-face travel, but in a relatively normal year, you would hope that you would be doing more state and regional travel. To again, face-to-face time is key in our industry, because it is an industry where people buy each other. And I mean that in the best of ways. They really do. They buy people who they know, who they trust, who will ensure that their event happens in a great way. So whenever you look at whether it's the Sagamore or the Fort William Henry or Six Flags or the Queensberry, people, they have repeat customers because they've been taking care of them. And that's our goal, is to take care of people one-on-one, and they'll believe us and they know us. And when we say what we're going to do, we do it, what we say we're going to do. And that's another piece of that, is making sure that we can touch and feel them. And specific personal vehicle, just so you know, we don't have in-house vehicles that are, owned by the CVB in any way, shape, or form. So it is personal vehicles that are utilized for state and regional travel. Convention services, branded promotional items. This is a little different than that whole sponsorship. So typically right now we have materials that we've utilized. Joanne and her team have given us many of the nice blue bags. We've utilized those for groups, and a variety of things that we do under convention services. So last week we had a very nice military reunion in town at the Georgian, and we helped to offset their speaker. They had speaker Maury Thompson locally, who came and spoke to them but needed to stay, and just other things that happen in convention services. And then personnel. Currently we have a full-time sales manager, full-time we don't have a full-time sports coordinator. We do have a full-time marketing coordinator, part-time executive director, part-time marketing director, part-time receptionist, and part-time tourism trainer. And when I say that, it's really based on assistance. There could be receptionists may not be needed at all for certain times, but if there were an event where we needed all hands on deck, then there might be some time that are allocated to a specific person. Our tourism trainer is our A to D program, and so his is hourly based on training sessions. Right now, this summer it was a little light. We just started back up again. We just did a class of 7 staff. And as other people are doing things now in the fall and have time, we'll probably see a little bit more of that happening. Convention sales and development. This is a little different. This is, for if you attend a luncheon somewhere or if we host a familiarization tour, because of COVID and, really being out of not a lot of face-to-face events or opportunities. Now that people are back in the swing of things or trying to get back to the swing of things, FAM tour would be optimum. We're talking about having one where we would bring people in. We need to pay for them to get here and to take care of them while they're here would be during ice castles. Because also that first quarter is a slower time in the meeting and events world, where they're, for them to see our destination and meet our partners and actually tour properties while they be here. Database subscription services, Scout Sports, in an effort to offset going to other sporting events. There is a tool now of former CVB folks in the sports world that have a dedicated database and dedicated staff where you could go in and find business for certain need times in the sports world and do it in a different way that might be, they would have history on each of those events to know the value of those events and whether worth your time or not. Client recognition would be promotional items, specifically if we were to, if it was the Capital Region State Association, we might put together specific items for them around a certain time of year. And then event attendance prizes. We do attend a lot of events and, oftentimes you do provide a prize of some way, shape or form, and not everybody gives us everything for free. So in that regard. Thanks. Staff development, DI Marketing Summit. This is Destinations International is, again, the mothership of all CVBs, and they offer an annual conference and a specific marketing summit that we have attended in the past. It's been very helpful for us as trends are changing, and so is all of how we utilize social media and other media outlets. Simpleview Users Conference. Simpleview is our CRM, our customer relationship management database program of how we manage destination partners as well as all of our clients, where you can see our activity. It does show up in our monthly reports to the committee and to the Warren County Tourism Department, where you can see, how many traces, how many people we talked to in a certain month and what were those activities. And then industry specific webinars fall under that. Simpleview, that is our customer relationship database management program. And we have annual license fees in addition to user fees. So right now the users on there, and that again comes up in our monthly finances that we send to Lisa and to Joanne, that is our user fees are the actual staff. And then Tanya Brand also has a user's license for that and has since we started this 3 years ago. And then it's also a tracking tool for our partner and client management. So any interactions that we have with our partners and our clients, we keep those notes all in there, and you can have a running story of everybody that you're working with. The economic impact calculator, this we've had this now, I think since 2018 is when that first year when we purchased this, and it's an annual license fee, and where we can calculate the economic impact of meetings differently than sports, differently than festivals and special events. And so when Lisa had asked about, we went back and forth to see when we were evaluating certain occupancy tax awards and really looking at the value of those events. And research. This year, Joanne and I and others in the community, we sat on a subcommittee to look at our data and metrics and how we were looking at all kinds of information about our destination, and then also looking at us compared to other destinations. And so at this point, Warren County Tourism Department had a contract for their monthly information. And so we added to our monthlies to add these other destinations so we could look at them that have similar markets as ours to see how we were doing with regard to growing our destination and optimizing every aspect that we could. And it's been very enlightening to see what's happening around the Northeast and in similar destinations. And that's what we've got for you.
Thank you, Gina. A lot of good information there. Any questions for Gina? Who's that? Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Gina. That quite a slideshow. The last one, in the comparison, how do we compare?
We've done very, very well this whole summer season. Sam Luciano from the Fort William Henry, he's been able to take our weeklies and turn them into, so you could see the graph. I can forward that. We have the most recent, I think it was as of 8/29, that last week, where you can see us week to week to week, all from an occupancy standpoint, then one all for an average daily rate, and then one for a revenue per available room. So it's been very enlightening to see how we're playing out against Cape Cod, who has 2/3 more rooms than we do, but yet, there's times when our occupancy is right there with them. We have less rooms and our rate is higher, or their rate is higher. You could see like when the track really spiked at Saratoga compared to when it didn't. Albany's been lagging behind, unfortunately, all year, just because they're a big group house and a government house and some other things that have not, and the higher education that's there. And without all of the students in, you could see how that's impacted their whole year. We thought Hershey, PA was, doing great, but really not compared to us. I don't know, Joanne, if you have any other thoughts on that, because it's been really enlightening to look at those, especially when you see it as a graph. It's one thing for us to look at this one metrics and the raw data, but then when you see it as the graph and you really see how we've gone week to week, it's been
You can
enlightening.
share that would be great.
Yeah,
because,
yeah, absolutely.
I recognize a lot of the big names.
Mhm.
And, like I said, I just like to see, because I always boast. I just got back from Maine, and I tell everybody, where you're from, and I always say like Lake George, Queensbury, and a lot of people said, "Geez, we haven't been there." I said, "Well, you ought to come."
Yeah.
And, so it's just very interesting on some of the other, especially Barnstable there in the Cape. I've been out there. I grew up out on the Cape in the summers with my family vacationing out there. So it's nice that we can compare to them, because that's great.
And the one thing that we don't have with that, just as a precursor, is we're only looking at lodging, hotels and lodging, not at campsites and or Airbnb and short-term rentals. So to just see the magnitude that's just happening there in our lodging, it's tremendous.
How hard would it be to add those?
It's not apples to apples, because
Okay with apple and pears.
well, I mean, because one we get, go ahead, Joe. That'd be good.
But that,
I don't believe there's a camping metric available on a monthly basis like that. I've looked into a little bit. I don't know if you're aware of anything. I will get end of the year numbers from DEC, so I can see how the DEC campgrounds and day use facilities were being utilized over the summer. I do have the short-term rental report, which I've mentioned at the meetings. So I'll talk about that a little bit more when it's my turn for presentation, but we do have short-term rental analytics and demand and revenue and all of that. Very
great.
similar.
Yeah, I'm not asking for
Trends.
it's just exciting to see that it's all coming together. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two observations and a question. The question is, does your sports person work with ORDA or with West Mountain on winter sport, on ski specific events?
So right now, not necessarily with ORDA. We've worked with New York State Public High School Athletic Association in terms of when they're booking events at West or at Gore, but not necessarily. I mean, we're working with the 2023 World Games, and it's not a person out of ORDA.
Can I encourage you to reach out to ORDA and to NICEF?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are both, they bring big events to the area, and I'm sure they could use your help. So if there's any way that you could analyze our events, the ones that are funded by the county through that economic impact calculator, and give us numbers, that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah,
to
Lisa
the
and I,
committee.
we've done that in the past, so I'll get with Lisa and we'll
But it would be great if we could just regularly have that shared for
Mhm.
each event that we
Absolutely.
fund.
And we've done other things like I see Supervisor Merlino, like the Adirondack Folk School, they wanted to look at what a weekend was like for their events and then look at a whole year of the impact of what they're doing by bringing people in for all of their classes because most of their people are from out of town. So we've also been able to do that and use the economic impact calculator for that.
That would be great if we could just receive that
Yep.
automatically. And my last one, and it's just my annual standing on my soapbox. I support you. I always vote for funding you, but there is one event north of Warrensburg on your website listed right now. I encourage you and implore you to please do more outreach in the North Country. Things are going on up there.
Oh, no. Oh, absolutely. It just sometimes like I see Supervisor Leggett, I mean, Friends Lake Inn because of they have space for all of that, whereas Alpine Lodge, not a whole lot of space. We stay in touch with Diana up at, Phoenix and, so that we could try to place business there. So we're still trying to do that. Just so you know.
Supervisor, wow.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have two kind of questions and comments. The first one is similar to what Supervisor McGowan was speaking about. Gina, I saw your presentation and followed it very closely. To be honest, it's confusing. I don't know what it all means. I know that you're reaching out to all these different organizations, but for $550,000, I didn't see any return on our investment. So Supervisor McGowan did ask for some metrics, but this is basically an annual presentation by the CBB, and I didn't see any metrics in your presentation. And to me, that's something I consider to be important for us to go forward with on a budget.
Okay, so all of that would have been in our marketing plan that was submitted with the budget. So I was asked to show our budget today. Was not asked to necessarily go through our marketing plan that would have our actual goals for room nights, as well as frequency and reach and impressions, and that what you're asking me for.
That's fair. I recognize that, we may have miscommunicated there, but the next time we get together, hopefully next month, I would like to see an explanation of the results of all your efforts.
Okay.
Secondarily, along the lines of what Supervisor Hogan mentioned, and this has come up to me on a number of occasions, the CVB and the Lake George Chamber are very tightly connected. And I know it's not fair to hit you kind of by surprise on this, but the next time we get together, unless you want to talk about it now, what are the benefits of having the CVB tied with the Lake George Chamber? And I'd like to go through that in some detail to truly understand where there might be opportunities potentially to separate the two organizations, to have the CBB focused on the county as a whole and the chamber continuing to do what it does, primarily focusing on Lake George.
Okay, so two things. One, Lake George Regional Chamber of Commerce is not necessarily just focused on Lake George. So I just preface that as they are two separate organizations in terms of every way that we designate staff, how we even use a copy machine, to how we market differently. There are times when the chamber is promoting some things that the CVB is doing specifically with our guides. So you might see in a consumer e-news from the chamber, the CVB does not use that consumer news because we don't have permission to do that. Those folks have only opted in to receive information from the chamber, but we do include links to our digital wedding guide, our digital travel guide. That's the chambers, but also the digital meeting guide, meeting and sports guide. So there are times when the chamber is doing CVB work, but the CVB is not doing chamber work. So I just want to be clear about that. The other question that you asked me was, how are we separated? So there was always talk that the CVB should be in a different building. So if you're in a different building, someone needs to answer the phone. someone needs to do all those things that a sales manager, if they're doing just that sort of thing, then they're not doing their job of trying to sell in any way, shape, or form. There is back of the house assistance that the chamber provides in terms of whether it's a place to live and or take care of all of those ways that we can document what we do, whether it's our payroll or paying the bills that need to be done. Somebody has to do that. Just like your organization here, there's somebody dedicated as a bookkeeper. There's somebody dedicated for from tourism development. There's somebody dedicated for creativity. So there are people within the organization that sometimes can be on loan. Like Amanda Metzger helped us tremendously as a big part of keeping our messaging out there for the CVB during COVID from a marketing standpoint that doesn't come under a sales manager's abilities or what they do on a daily basis. So there are, in my estimation, or, it could be different. If you were saying, well, we're going to take all this in-house, you would need those certain people to do certain things. Like if, in our world, we keep everything separate. The CVB is its own silo in a way, as is the Welcome Center in its own way, as is the chamber. So really they're separate, but they're under one roof. And most of what I will say this, if you looked at our chamber and CVB as a full, and the Welcome Center is all one entity, there are other organizations like ours, 17 in total around the state, that are doing all of those things under one roof as one entity.
Thank you. I do think, though, the one thing, I think a few years back, I think most of us were under the assumption they were going to split duties. And I think that's why the question comes up, that the duties have not been separated clearly. And I think that's why the question keeps getting asked, the close relationship between the two organizations, and does it branch out to include the whole county? So, and I know you had another question.
I do, thank you. And your response was great, thank you, but it spawned many other questions. And I'm thinking, does the chamber contribute to some of the marketing that you do on the CVB side? Because obviously the chamber, the Lake George entities benefit from this. So does the chamber funds, did they contribute to what the CVB is doing?
In the chamber funds would contribute in terms of, as the chamber markets themselves, the CVB is always mentioned. As the CVB markets itself, the chamber is not mentioned. So we utilize chamber tools to promote the CVB, whether it's the meetings market, and a lot of the chamber activities are member driven versus CVB. If we send out a lead to lodging properties, they go everywhere that we have in our database. They don't just go to chamber members, if that makes sense. So when there's chamber functions, it's about those that are members. They're only getting that membership benefit, if you will. But I guess I would say more from a marketing standpoint would be where those dollars really benefit the CVB, whether we're at consumer trade shows that are chamber driven, very different than a CVB trade show. That's where the chamber dollars help the CVB because it's extending that brand awareness.
Thank you, Gina. Mr. Chairman, I think what I would like you to consider is maybe a working group to take a look at this.
We are
more
going
questions. And it's just questions without clear answers. And I know, Gina, you're doing your best, but I think I have more questions than there could be answers today. So
sure,
if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind helping with that
Nope.
effort.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Gina before we move on? Yes.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification. I might be remembering this wrong, Gina, and I apologize if I am, but I thought that about this, maybe it was about this time last year, or maybe it was early this year, we had been talking about a pivot away from sports tourism and more into weddings. Am I remembering that?
So we, yes, you're absolutely true. And we did a lot of the weddings. The reason for the sports tourism was those were prepaid trade shows. We had not budgeted for them. That one of them was latent. It was paid in 2019 and it just popped up 2 weeks ago. That there was a latent sponsorship that was already paid for and we needed to backpedal and say, okay, we'll be there because it's paid for and we need to be there. So there was 2 events that were prepaid that, again, were not in our plan for this year. And then when it arose that, we needed to be there, then we need to be there. So it's not away from the sports market. We were just not putting as much emphasis because we have limited facilities in terms of what's available. So we can't keep turning people away because everybody wants to be here at a certain time of year and we won't, we're marketing Golden Goal and we're marketing the Dome and other fields, but we only have a certain amount of time or availability to be able to use those. And it makes us look bad when we're turning people away over repeatedly.
So in terms of a longer term direction, that's still a priority or it's not as high?
It's not as high a priority. We still need to be out there because there's teams that are coming or there's events that are coming here that are in that world of where we'll see them face to face other than when they're here. But we haven't gone out to say, well, we have all of this, but we can only offer you this time frame when you don't really want to have that event here.
Okay, so it is accurate then that resources have shifted out of that and into weddings. Okay.
Yeah, because if you looked at what we would have spent in 2019 or 2018, there was a lot more in the sports world than there was nothing in the weddings market.
Right. What do you have a guesstimate as to what it would be for 2022? How much of the 550 would be for sports as compared to what it used to be?
I'd have to go back and look just to give you a percentage, and I can do that though.
Any other questions? Go ahead, John.
Who is attending the shows? Are you going or?
Yes, because there's, so some of them are happening at the same time. So in Tampa, we did 2 different markets. I did the specialty market, Meg Bell did the association market. We have a sports event and a faith-based event at the same time in October. I'll do the sports one, she'll do the faith one, and I'll do the second sports show that's coming up.
Okay. Nothing else? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Gina. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Tourism Department budget. Joanne? Frank, you leaving?
I am leaving. I have another job.
Okay, go ahead.
So Tammy has my slides and we have 2 budgets to present today. So one is the tourism department budget and one is the other occupancy tax, the town and the special events. So we will present those separately. The first one I'll present is the tourism budget. So that's 6417,001 and most of it is in your budget packet today. What Tammy will pull up are a couple of slides that will just maybe make the visual a little bit easier to see and understand. So overall, my tourism budget increased $321,421 this year. There we go. A little over 100,000 of that was payroll. 200,000 of that was in the promotion code. So just to ballpark that increase. So let's take a look. Well, not on the screen. The first page in your packet is revenue. So let me just say that we'll take $2,318,689 will come from OCTAX collections. We estimate $50,000 departmental income. That would be revenue from people that choose to advertise in our travel guide. And tourism promotion state aid is matching funds, $80,000. And that is just an estimate of what we would hope to receive next year. So our total revenue will meet our expenses at $2,448,689. So next page will coordinate with the slide that's on the screen. And I just quickly broke down each of the codes for you. So salaries is up considerably. In the 100 codes, it's up $76,000. Part of that is due to the CSEA increases, and we did add an additional position to the department in the tourism development and events coordinator. Other 200, 400 codes, some of those are very much the same. You can see office equipment is 1,000, office supplies is only 2,800. Phones, we went up a little bit this year. Phones have been ringing quite a bit. Maggie will attest to that. Postage is decreasing year over year. We're down $1,900 in the postage category. Subscriptions, a slight increase as subscriptions do increase annually. That's only up 265,000. Membership and dues, we dropped a motor coach subscription, so we're down $630. The data processing, that is actually an amount that we provide to the IT department, who does a lot of support for us. Travel mileage, we increased $1,000. We were very minimal this past year. So even that $3,000 is just perhaps Kristen and I attending a couple of statewide events. And then in the 800s, employee benefits and compensation, those things are out of my control, but dropped into my budget.
What about 470?
470. So let's come to the next page and the next slide. Yes, so 470 is just a number on your budget of $425,450. And the breakdown is on the slide in front of you. And I think that it's in the back of the budget somewhere on an addendum page. So New York State matching funds, that is actually our part of that goes to the department, and part of it goes to ARTC, the Adirondack Regional Tourism Council, and that is an estimated award for next year. BBG&G is our current webmaster. They are in the process of creating our website right now and hope to launch that after the new year. That is up $20,000 over the previous year. But that's what the bids came in at, and that was a reasonable price for the job that they will do for us. Working pictures, that's exactly the same as it was last year, no increase. The Smith Trend, that's the hotel analytics. And as Gina mentioned, she's subscribing to the 8 peer counties or destinations that we want to compare ourselves to. And she's getting the weekly reports. I'm getting the monthly report, and I did add in additional destinations so that we can share both of those reports. That's down $900. New York welcomes you. If you remember a couple of years ago, if any of these same supervisors were on the board, Josiah Brown came in and gave a presentation, as he will after the first of the year. But we do not attend a lot of shows out on the road, setting up the display. We've gotten away from that a little bit. We do minimal, but Josiah is our man on the street, and he produces a guide. He has a truck that's wrapped, and the whole driver's side is the Lake George area. And he knows the Lake George area very well and represents us well. So we pay him to be our man on the street. Air DNA is the short-term rental analytics that we had talked about. So I'll have the same type of report as I get from Smith Trend, the same analytics, supply, demand, revenue, all of that good information. A little bit of money for content or photography or freelancers if we need to go outside the department for those things. Social media influencers. So both content, photography, freelance, and influencers, we zeroed out this past year. So there's a $10,000 increase. We'd like to add those back into the budget. And it just gives us more additional assets and content that we can be placing in advertising and digitally specifically. Our travel guide was the full version of the travel guide at $80,000 was not in my budget last year. So that's an $80,000 increase. What I did have in the budget last year was a seasonal guide, which is the 20-page guide that we did produce this summer. I did leave that amount in. I decreased it slightly to 15,000, thinking if winter is what we think it is going to be with ice castles and Winterfest and Festival of Lights, that perhaps we want a 20-page winter guide. So I did leave $15,000 in the budget for a seasonal winter guide. So that 0.470 totals $425,000 and change. 481 is the next code, which is just a number on your budget, 1,273,300. So the next screen breaks that down for you. Our media budget that we spend with Workshop every year is $1 million. So connected TV, broadcast, and digital. We'll have Workshop in again to make a presentation of what their plans are for the upcoming year. Some of the items here are a combination of consumer and motor coach. So that would be the print budget, which has declined year after year after year. So this is pretty minimal right now. A few of the print things that I do are annual guides. There's a camping guide, the Coney annual guide. I feel that if you're a camper, you're subscribing to that Coney membership and you'll have that guide and you'll want it in hand. Snowgoer magazine, I subscribe to the annual, that would be snowmobiling. And I think that snowmobilers go to that one guide, the annual piece. So I feel that it's worth a half-page ad, and they also give me a half-page advertorial in that. One piece in Montreal that's in French language. I don't do any, this year I'm not going to place reader service. So what reader service is, and in past years, we've had a tiny little ad in the back of Good Housekeeping or Ladies Home Journal, print publications that our market would read, but it was a small ad way in the back of the book. And then you kind of circled the number. Oh, I'd like information from Lake George or the Finger Lakes or whatever other destination, Cape Cod. And we would get literally thousands of leads in. And they would have to circle that they wanted to receive our information. But over time, I think they've become less valuable to me and to us, because I do think, and I've tested these things a few times myself, where I'll circle a couple of things and then I end up getting mail for many destinations that I didn't circle. So they're selling my name to these other destinations. So that makes the lead a little less valuable. Whereas with AAA, it's just Warren County, the Lake George area. If I say I want to receive my travel guide, that's what I get. And I don't get anything else. So I will do AAA because we're a drive market. And I think there's still an audience for that. And we might only get 1,000 or so leads from that, not many thousands of days gone by. So I've gotten away from that. And Tanya does an ABA print ad. What else do we do? Social and digital, that is becoming more and more important within the department. And most of what we post on social media, largely Facebook and secondarily Instagram, are events. So we have our tier 1, 2, and now we're adding a tier 3 to our events, that we will promote them either 2 weeks ahead of time if it's a larger event. If it's a really large event like Americade, we might post once early in the season to encourage pre-registration, and then we'll post as the event gets closer and encourage, last minute people who are making a decision to come. Our smaller, maybe some of our town events, I'm thinking of Smoke Eaters, I'm thinking of things around the county. I went to the, Frank just left, the Mountain Days. I mean, it was just packed with people, and it's great to see people at these smaller events. And can we help them with our reach, because we have significant social media reach? Hey, I'm in Lake George today. This looks like a really fun event. Get in the car and drive over there. So those are some of the smaller events that we do try to bring to our audience's attention and get them out there. So most of what you're seeing in that digital is social media, and most of it is event driven. And most of that is, it's just us in-house, Casey and I and Peter working together on that. Production and images, if we need, so Casey is our photographer. I introduced you to her when she came out and took the Board of Supervisors photo, but occasionally we do buy some high resolution images. Carl Heilman, Luke Dow, there are a couple of photographers out there if we need something very specific and, you know, really high resolution for the travel guide or for our new website, we might go out to other photographers who are out there. ART miscellaneous, which is not part of our contract. If I go to media night, which I've mentioned, money could come out of there. Not last year, but the year before, we had Adirondack Day at the Saratoga racetrack. They're just some little miscellaneous things that we do with the Adirondack region that could fall into that. A miscellaneous category, petty cash. I'll have to place a classified ad for a position that I would like to fill in January. Show registrations are minimal. Tanya will only attend one show this year, and that's ABA, and that is the standard bearer for the motor coach industry. So she will attend that show and have appointments with tour operators, group tour leaders, more so tour operators, to bring them to the Lake George area. So that number has decreased in recent years. Tanya might update, she will update her motor coach planner, just a few dollars there. She has individual itinerary cards in a little folder that she's redesigned with Peter, and that's what she takes with her and will send people, or if she's meeting tour operators here, she'll present them with her itinerary packet. FAM tours, if there are groups coming into the area, whether it's consumer or motor coach, and we're hosting them, we always, not always, but often work with I Love New York, and sometimes they will pick up the tab or pay a media rate on some hotel rooms. But if we have to pick up a little something here or there or have some favors for them, then we have a few dollars for FAM tours. Go North is the international program that Tanya works with Saratoga County, Clinton County, the Wild Center, and a little bit with Lake Placid. And the idea is that the international visitors are coming into New York City, and we want to attract them to go north to come up the Northway I-87 and visit this part of the state. So that's been ongoing for a number of years. So each of the participants will contribute a few $1,000s, and that's our contribution. So that, I think, is most of my breakdowns for tourism. Some of the back pages that came with the agenda packet break out the codes, the 470s and the 480 that you're seeing on the screen. And if there are any other questions on my budget in my department, the other budget that we're responsible for this year is OCTAX. And Lisa might come to the podium and help me with that and just kind of run through a similar breakdown.
Okay. Lisa?
So basically, we're budgeting for both the department and for occupancy tax based on a figure of $5 million that we hope to collect in 2022. So the portion of that applied to this part of the budget is $2,681,311. And the second page, there's a breakdown of how that is broken out. And there are also notes you'll see in the comment section. So the 469 code is the 25% that is paid to the towns, the city of Glens Falls and the village of Lake George. And we've budgeted 25% based on 5 million. We added a code 469.05 municipal application funding for $195, $195,000. Administration 0.471 is the treasurer's fee. He gets 3% of the collections from the year prior to administer the occupancy tax within his department. 480 is the special events code. And with the 30,000 that was just given to Festival of Lights, we're up around 550,000 for this year. We've budgeted 600,000 for next year. 480.02 Convention Event Development Fund. That 250,000 is the amount that we give to the Civic Center for promotion. 480.04 Warren County projects. We do pay Black Dog Design for the Festival Commons website. 480.05 business promotion. That is broken down between the CVB ask of 550,000 and the Lake George Visitor Center of 25,000. We also fund out of this side of the budget environmental projects, which is invasive species funding for the towns of Chester, Horicon, and Lake Luzerne. And then the final item is 480.08, which is a 5-year commitment for capital costs at the Civic Center. So as you will see, our expenses do exceed the balance of that $5 million, which would mean that the 545,689 on the bottom would need to be appropriated from the occupancy tax reserve.
Any questions? Supervisor Webb.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. How long before we totally deplete the occupancy tax reserve by going into the reserve every year?
Go ahead.
We're going into the reserve on paper. If you look at the adopted budget for this year, 2021, there's an $829,830,000 deficit that we budgeted in. The reality is we're going to finish the year with a surplus. The revenue that we used was a low revenue number. We have committed $4.8 million in 2021 of expenses, and 300,000 of that was covered with a surplus that was generated in 2020. So really what we're going to end up spending at the end of this year as of right now is $4.5 million. Treasurer reported that we're 15% higher than 2019. If a 15% higher than 2019 were to hold for the entire year, we're going to end the year at $5.6 million of revenue as compared to. So the long story short is when we make these budgets, we're utilizing a revenue estimate that over the past 2 years, and we hope again next year, it's going to be higher than the estimate that we utilized. And that has to do with short-term rentals. That has to do with existing room rates being higher this year than they were last year. There's a lot that's going in our favor.
Any other questions on tax? Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you. So the 2020 actual amount on tax was 2,700,000, and we're budgeting 2 million, about 681,000.
You gotta look at the very last line. It's on page page 2 of 2. You see net grand totals.
Yep.
When I just made the comment that we utilized 300,000 from 2020, that's what I meant. So the positive number down there indicates an excess of, because the revenues are split between the tourism department and this occupancy tax expense.
Gotcha.
So overall, for you, between the two of them, you had an excess of almost $300,000. And that's where I said that the budgeted deficit over in the next column for 2021 of 829,875.
Yeah.
It's not gonna end up that way.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. I have another question for the administrator. Does this budget, in your opinion, fully recognize the potential for OCTAX income in 2022? Is it acknowledging the 600 some odd short-term rentals that Treasurer Swan told us earlier are going to come online?
This budget utilizes, as Lisa stated, either Lisa or Joanne stated, it utilizes a revenue estimate of $5 million. And as I said, we're projecting out, if the 15% holds that the treasurer announced, we're projecting out $5.5 million for this year.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So your answer is kind of no.
Right. It's a
unknown.
conservative budget.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
the short answer is no.
Any other questions? No?
Okay.
Then we'll move on from the budgets. What we have. Any referrals?
So I think
That's
referral number 1 was approved at the last board
right. So
meeting.
we can take that off.
So that comes off. And this is a good segue into the next committee meeting. We will review the two competitor, the RFPs, competitor market data. There were 3 proposals that were submitted. 2 of them scored very highly, and we will have presentations from both of those. And that is on September 30th.
What's that for?
What's that?
What's that for? The
That's
competitive-
for the 2 proposals for doing a,
Competitor market data.
you're going to go out.
So if you have a few minutes to review those, I did send those out last week. There is some scoring in the original RFP specs if you want to do some scoring ahead of time. Both of those vendors will be with us on Zoom because one is in Chicago and one is in LA.
And I'll ask that, we need to be, I'll ask that we try to be disciplined that day because at noon we have to adjourn the other 2 meetings ahead, at least the 1 meeting that will be going on. If it's not done, we'll have to adjourn it so we can go in and do these presentations because they are in the Midwest and on the West Coast. So those chair people of those 2 committees, hopefully they'll toe the mark and finish up by noon time. But if not, we need to start these presentations at noon. Are there any other questions? Yes, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Chairman Garrity. Just a quick question to follow back up very briefly. I understand it wasn't addressed, but just to Gina with the CVB. After action reports, that was something after we fund events. It was really helpful for us with the Stony Creek one, but there's been some other after action reports that I know we'd like to be able to see. Have those come through? Okay. We were going to amend the contract to include those after actions, but I know that we went back and forth on email and you were fine with doing that. So is that, okay. So can we just go with moving forward, Robert, in that contract development for next year? I would very much like to see a section for 60 days after a event to get an after action report so that we have a good idea of how that money was used. We require it now of our own events that are funded countywide, but particularly with CVB, the events that they're working with, it gives us a vantage point to just kind of look in and see how we can improve as well.
We can do that.
And then it was mutually agreeable. It wasn't anything that was controversial. We were just hoping to get some of that information. Right, Gina, we're good with that? Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody? Supervisor Hogan, we are adjourned. Thank you. Okay.